Nice.
For food.
I don't.
They want to.
Yeah, so it was like, yeah. Well,
It's gonna be exactly that.
And,
Yeah. What?
But I did my kitchen.
Delegates are gonna bring ice to Love
money.
Well, they can do it however they want to. Right?
Yeah. Guys, come see my- Zoom? It's so much.
Well, and how do you send in your ballots?
They must have it figured out.
Are you a delegate?
Oh, they haven't told you yet.
They said that email them, so that they. Email the next day saying.
Yeah.
I didn't get anything.
They're still working on it.
Wow.
Except the fact that I didn't get anything.
So I did my time. I did my time. I did my time.
It's like a set.
I did my time.
You walk in, sorry.
Brian, it's.
You're good.
We're the right time.
Right, that sounds right to me, so. I just wanted to.
You're right.
Yeah, it's good you loved your view while you went home.
That's
Yeah.
That's exactly
what I did.
You have to have a good crowd, right? The right crowd.
No.
And,
Two of the things. Once upon a time.
Diary.
Yeah, that's all right.
Not it. She wasn't.
Oh my God.
Yeah, it was not. In fact, I'm gonna find a place that in our.
Oh,
It'll be a 6:30. I don't know. We might, but we might not. You know, uh-huh.
You everybody, so something could change, right? Yeah.
Oh, okay. So us up in Nova, where we're at. Okay, for the lunch. So I have a couple of council members that like to come to that. Should I just? We'll go.
Oh, of course.
Okay, so she knows who's going in.
And I'll mention you guys have your use.
Okay.
I think Angel sent out the.
Okay, I was
She's
gonna
gonna
say, I
find
don't
out the
see
notice.
anything, so.
The big city mayor meeting, primary focus is gonna be homelessness. You saw how many times we presented the copy, I think that's how we build out.
Oh, okay.
That high level teams and vetting it with key stakeholders and probably want to make sure I was here tonight. As you coordinator and getting feedback about.
That works. Thanks, Pam. Oh, log in. All right, we'll call to order our study meeting for the West Valley City Council. It is January 10th, 2023. It is 4:31, and we are in the multi-purpose room of West Valley City Hall. We have all members of the council present tonight, either online or in person. And we are joined at the table with our Assistant City Manager, Ms. Cottle, and our City Reporter, Ms. Kemick. We will go to our January 3rd, 2023 meeting minutes, and I'll turn it to council for discussion or a motion on the minutes.
Motion to approve. Second.
I think we have a motion and a second. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Okay, and those pass. We will now go to our regular meeting. Are there any changes?
No, ma'am.
Okay, are there any questions with anything on the agenda?
Mayor, I did have one question on the regular meeting agenda.
Okay,
I noticed we have on there the moderate housing plan.
Okay.
But I had sent in some questions and they were answered, but I hadn't had a chance to bring them up. And I was wondering if, I don't know if we can postpone that or if there's a due date on that, but I'd like to bring it up at study meeting and just get the council's feel on a couple of those issues that I sent to our city manager.
Okay,
So Mayor, if I could chime in if it's okay.
Sure.
The only reason that we're under the gun a little bit timing wise is you'll recall we turned it in and then had it turned back to us for the fix. Part of the compliance with that is tied to our state funding. And so while I don't think another week or even 2 would be problematic, we were trying to get that done before the legislative session so that there was no question at all that we were in full compliance. In fact, we don't even think we actually needed to bring it back for full approval again, but we wanted to because it was of substantial change. And so that would be the only time constraint. I think we probably still have a week or 2 where we could legitimately say we're still good. But I think past that, I would start to get nervous just because of the legislative session. I want to make sure we can check the box that we're in full, complete 100% compliance. We've already submitted that for their approval to say, yes, this looks good. This meets our requirements. They've seen the draft. They're just waiting for you all to agree as well. So that's the only timing issue.
okay.
Could we talk about it now? And get that?
Yeah, it's only 2 things that I wanted to bring up to the council.
It's your pleasure. I think today or I think another week and we'd be okay. Much past that, I'd start to get nervous.
Do you want to bring those up now? I mean,
I
we're
can,
going to talk
I don't
about
know
them. We
if
have
you're-
plenty of time.
You have it available, we can just bring it up.
Yep, you bet.
The questions and the answers?
Or just the plan.
Oh,
and
just
then
the
I
plan.
can direct you
Okay.
to what page.
Oh, you know what your question and answers are. Okay,
And is it okay if we just invite Steve up?
sure.
He'll be the prime answer.
Mr. Pastrick
Never.
will come to the podium and trying to find where to find.
Regular meeting.
Stewart's case of Jacobson.
Thanks, Eric.
So I need to remember what page it's on, that page that identifies the tax credit projects that are in our city. The chart was a little confusing just because the first column indicated 2021.
Page 7.
Yeah, page 7, thank you. So I went out to UHC's website and total tax credit units since the beginning of the tax credit program is around 1,500. I actually got 14 something, but that first column says 2021 tax credit units. It made it appear that those were tax credits from 2021. I don't know if that can be changed or maybe just clarified.
Sure. So we received this information from the state. They have a database where they compile all this tax credit units. And so it may be that those that had maybe a couple that were out of date. And so I've put in a call to the Utah Housing to get the latest list as well. But this is what the state was using on, in fact, as a resource for cities to complete their plans was where we pulled the information.
And sir, your question is, so I'm clear, is just the 2021, just the year 2020 makes the graph confusing.
Yeah, just
Yeah.
when I first read it, I thought, man, that's a lot of tax credits for 2021. But then as I looked
Yeah.
at it a bit more, it's obvious that.
It's more
those
like
were-
total tax
Total
credit.
tax.
Yeah,
Yeah.
total units, correct.
If you could, if
We
you
could
wanted
just
to
drop
make
that.
that change, yeah, or put that in the motion and we can make that change, no problem. That's just an administrative change and that's, yeah.
At the bottom, it does say that this is from the table of 2016 to 2025 year estimate.
And that's for the census data. So for as far as the occupied housing units, that's the census data there.
Okay.
And then the other suggestion I had, and it's not in here, is the Utah Housing Preservation Fund. Over almost half of the units that they've preserved so far are in our city. Even though the city is not involved in that fund and we haven't partnered on the tax credits, all of them. But I'm wondering if the council would be agreeable to put the Housing Preservation Fund in this plan just to demonstrate that almost, I think it's out of 640 units, over 300 of them are in West Valley City. Just to further demonstrate our impact.
I think that's a great suggestion from the staff perspective. We can just put that in or you can include that in your motion if the council so agrees. That's awesome.
Yeah, I think those are two good improvements.
Yeah.
So you could make the motion with those two things in there?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
Okay.
If you're comfortable. And if
Anybody else have questions about that or opposed? Okay,
Thank you.
that's all for tonight's meeting. All right, now we'll go to our communications and I'll turn the time over to Ms. Cottle to introduce our
Yes,
presentation.
thank you. We have tonight an update from the University of Utah. And with us, we have Anna Carpenter. She's going to be making the presentation. We also have Richard Orlandi. And you guys all know Brian Shizawa, Dr. Shizawa. And Cameron Wright is in the back. That's the part of the West Valley team. It's much larger than that, but these are the folks that are with us tonight. And as we as staff have engaged them, it's been really just a pleasure and great opportunity to work with them. And I think you'll enjoy their update tonight. I'll just have Anna come on up to the, oh, great, or Dr. Shizawa, come on up.
Well, Nicole, I always love having that first word. So thank you, Mayor, Nicole, members of the City Council. It's a real honor to be here with you tonight. I'm going to talk to you as an emergency doc and also one who consults at the University of Utah Health in particular on policy that affects legislation and our community engagement. And today we're going to talk to you about this West Valley project. Over the years, Nicole, you know this as well as the mayor does, and this great city council, we have enjoyed at the University of Utah a great partnership. And as a physician, like Dr. Orlandi, we see on an annual basis, almost 700,000 patients from the West Valley area who make that trek up to the university and our facilities to get their care. We appreciate their trust. And we hope that every time we interact with them, the care is excellent and meets their needs. On a given day, there's 50 inpatients, patients who are hospitalized at the University of Utah Health facilities. And every year, we have hundreds, over 800 students come to the University of Utah from the West Valley area. And this last year, we had 133 graduate students. So we have been partnering with this great community over the years on a number of levels. Now, we're all concerned about access and different things like that. But let me just share with you one figure. We did a calculation just on our outpatients. Just think of that for a second. 12 million miles a year, Mayor, that we figure the people from here travel to come up to get their health care, whether it's at the main hospital or one of the clinics, and then come home, and how this impacts their work, their lives, and their families. And what a great sacrifice this is. And so one of the other things we're looking at is working with partnership on making this more accessible, more sustainable. And this is going to be a great partnership. And that would be one of the big words I'd use with you that we're looking forward to working with you. Anna Carpenter is the senior director for presidential initiatives. She works with President Randall from the University of Utah. Richard Orlandi is a colleague of mine, well-respected ear, nose, and throat specialist. So if any of you have sinus issues or other issues, Dr. Orlando will help you. And he also does almost all the outpatient clinical work and ambulatory care work at the University of Utah. So he's a great expert in that area too. You all have had a chance to meet Cameron, who is working with us on our team. And without further ado, let me go ahead and Anna, if you'll take over here.
Thank
So
you.
thank you so much for having us here today. It's a real pleasure.
Thank you.
Thank you, Brian. Hi, everyone. My name is Anna Carpenter, and I'm here to tell you a little bit about the University of Utah's vision for our work in West Valley. And our goal really is to bring health and education and community partnership together in new ways for positive long-term societal impact. I mean, our goal, the thing we're focused on, is building a new model of how a leading research institution partners with and supports communities. As someone who's been in higher ed for most of my career, I can say that large research universities like ours don't typically do a lot of groundwork to partner with communities when they decide to make moves and make big operational changes. And I am actually really surprised and privileged at this point in my career. I wouldn't have thought it would come so soon that in 2023, I'd be involved in a project where a university was really trying to do things differently and to be more responsive and more collaborative. So it's really a privilege to be able to do this work. So we are, as I and Brian have talked about, focused on partnership and collaboration. And our work assumes that the best solutions, the best programs, the best approaches to building our presence in West Valley will come through a collaboration between community, between the university, and between organizational partners like Salt Lake Community College, like West Valley City community-based organizations. And so, as some of you may know, we have built up some strong community committees. One of those is the resident committee, a small group of folks who meets really regularly, the steering committee, which is sort of open and virtual, a space where we get a lot of input and information. Some of you have probably been in that room. And then we've also started conversations with neighbors who will be directly affected by the construction of the hospital. So getting into the meat of it, we are building, as you probably know, a world-class hospital and outpatient health center in West Valley City. We're planning to break ground in summer of 2024 with open doors in 2027. Residents in your community have shared with us feedback about what they'd like to see in the design and the programmatic elements of that space. The community is very interested, for example, in mixed use community spaces and on ways to mitigate the negative impacts of construction and the development of this new facility. And those are things that we're working on. We know that this community wants world-class healthcare and culturally responsive care, and we're working to build that in our programming and in how we design the space. And teams across the University of Utah health system, in collaboration with academic partners, are exploring some really ambitious and innovative, from a national perspective, programs to innovate in workforce development and in health sciences education. We're looking at how we recruit and train and hire and build a local workforce and how to improve healthcare and healthcare access across the community. And you can see a rendering, a rough rendering. This should have a big draft stamp on it. So in your brain, just stick a big draft stamp on the top of that site. And Richard Orlandi, who's here, as Brian mentioned, is someone who can answer if we have any questions about construction, that sort of thing, and healthcare services. Richard will be able to answer those. So in education, we have had conversations with your community about designing new and non-traditional ways to bring people into academic programs and career pathways to get higher paying jobs, beginning in the healthcare sector. And we're working to build a campus. The way we talk about this internally and externally is that we want to build a campus that meets all learners of all life stages and in phases of their development to support them on the academic and career journeys that they want to take. Another pillar of what we're trying to build here, and this is a lot, and again, about the university being more responsive in new ways, and this really comes from President Randall, a key pillar of his presidency is focused on social impact. He wants to see us become a top 10 public institution that has an unsurpassed societal impact. And so we've made a commitment to track and to measure our impact over time. Gardner Policy Institute is working with us to build an impact evaluation framework. And another piece of this work is we want to see that our net impact over time results in overall better community prosperity, and to try to mitigate some of the negative consequences that will come from the inevitable economic development. So to talk a little bit about our community engagement process to date, we've worked closely with the steering committee and the resident committees that I mentioned earlier. And we had our first meeting with the immediately adjacent neighbors in early December. And we're still at, of course, at a very early stage in those conversations. We are continuing the design and planning phases of the hospital and we're in the process of conducting some feasibility studies and market analysis on the academic programming side. Starting in this year in 2023, we're building out some additional community advisory groups, and some of you may be invited to some of those, and you can let me know if you're interested in joining, and you can feel free to send us any suggestions for folks who might want to be involved in that work. And this slide gives you a little bit of a visual of the range of groups who we've both spoken to and are interested in speaking with. And I will close there. That's all we've got. My colleague Cameron is going to, I think, go around and leave you all with a little card, a little 4x6 takeaway that gives an overview of this vision that I've just described. And I'm happy to take questions or to scuttle back to my seat.
Any questions?
Thank you.
I was at the December meeting and you guys did a phenomenal job. I think the residents were very pleased with the format and the way you listened to them. I think they really felt listened to, so I appreciate that.
Thank you so much. I appreciate it. All right. Thank you for your time.
Okay, thank you. All right, we'll go to Mr. Springmeyer for our renewable energy and sustainability. Thank you for coming.
Good afternoon, Mayor, Council. John Springmeyer, Chief Sustainability Officer. First off, I want to thank you for your patience. I know this was scheduled for a few weeks ago. I've been doing my best matrix impression, trying to dodge COVID, and it got me. So thank you for postponing this, and I didn't have to come and try to do this or do it Zooming with my voice. So it wouldn't be me if we didn't start off with some stats and some data. So we're going to start off there. Chart in front of you shows West Valley City to the far right, and then 3 other peer cities. This is data that has been collected. These are other cities that have participated in the Rocky Mountain Power Watt Smart Community Project that we'll talk about in a minute. So that's why these are the cities that were chosen as peer communities. But this is total electric energy use. As you can see, the red is residential, blue is non-residential. Obviously, we have a much larger non-residential commercial portion than the other 3 communities, which, you know, that's good from if I have my economic development hat on, that's really great. My sustainability hat on, that poses some challenges and some opportunities as well of getting them more involved. But on a residential side, you know, what I take away from this is that our residential electrical use is on par with the other cities as far as total usage, despite a much higher population. So I take that as a good sign that, you know, some of that is we're likely dealing with smaller homes than Sandy, South Jordan, Orem. But I'll take away the positives that we're just doing a better job of being energy efficient in our community than some of the peer communities. Here we've got the chart on the left, and this is 2019 data. This was the earliest data that we've got available for all 4 of these communities. These are businesses participating in the renewable energy solutions. These are the commercial programs available that Rocky Mountain Power is doing. We've got just 3% of our businesses that are participating in this, which again is on par with, you know, with the other peer communities. But to me, this is a huge opportunity to gain some growth and gain some of that carbon share that we're looking for by 2030. The next chart shows the net metering and total renewable participation for residents. We're on par, slightly above Sandy and Orem, a little behind South Jordan in the net metering. Net metering is a fancy way of saying that you're generating your own power. You've got your own power, your own panels, or it's self-generation. And the other total renewable programs, there are other programs that are available to participate through Rocky Mountain Power with purchasing offsets and things and whatnot. And we're on par with that too. Good that we're on par with other peer cities. In my mind, 3% and 10% mean we've got a lot of opportunity that we can gain some of those shares. I think with working with Rocky Mountain Power, as well as through myself, to better promote the opportunities that are available to our residents. Now that's it for the data dork in me tonight. Updates on what we've been doing thus far. Website has been redone, the sustainability website. We've got the videos that we shot, the mayor, other members of council, other staff that are on there. We have a timeline of the sustainability actions over the past 10 years, and we've got links to resources available for our residents to help give them better opportunity to know what's available for them. We are in the midst of our social media campaign. We've got weekly posts that go out on the city's social media. They're sustainability posts tailored towards seasonality, watering in the springtime, setting your thermostats, things of that nature. This week's was about taking the stairs instead of the elevators. It'll save energy and it'll help with what is the most common New Year's resolution, which is to get in better shape. Want to say thanks to Sam and Aaron for taking the 48 posts that I wrote and putting them to life with graphics and making them look a little better than just 2 lines. So thanks, Sam. Solar projects. I have been working with, and Nicole is participating in a couple of these as well, working with solar companies to we want to try to turn some of our larger facilities and to me, that's 4 that I'll categorize as larger facilities. This one, Maverick Center, the Cultural Center, and the Family Fitness Center as the 4 big ones. The goal is to be able to partner with solar company and turn those into self-sustaining solar generation facilities. We're still working on that. This is a big lift. These are big buildings. Maverick Center especially uses an incredible amount of energy, some of which is, you can imagine when we've got a concert or any event in the evening, especially summertime, how that energy use peaks 4 o'clock to 10 o'clock. But we've also got that sheet of ice. So you've got this, that's going 24/7, probably 49 weeks out of the year. So you've got this pretty high base load that's in there as well. So we've got high base and we've got high peak. Challenges, we're working on it. I'm optimistic and I'm hopeful that I'm going to be able to bring to staff and then hopefully to you in the near future of proposals to for your consideration on moving forward with these buildings. Once that is done, once we can get one or two of these municipal buildings with that partnership, then we would like to take these to our commercial partners. Yeah, and with the risk of throwing anyone under the bus, ARA is the one I'm going to throw out just because, you know, we're talking lots of big buildings with lots of roof space that right now doesn't do a whole lot. And how to both retrofit existing buildings as well as plan those out for the future buildings and help them decrease their energy usage and be more self-sustaining and sustainable. The WattSmart project that I spoke of before. WattSmart Communities is a facilitated, data-driven planning process that empowers our community to plan for and achieve energy goals. This is a project we've been working on with Rocky Mountain Power for about 6 months now, give or take. And Nicole has been a part of that. Councilman Nordfeld has participated in that as well. And I should note that this is free to us, including the consultants that Rocky Mountain Power hires to help facilitate this. This is one of the benefits of being a Rocky Mountain Power customer. The outcome of this, it would be a creation of an energy plan, which is going to give us the energy profile, vision, focus areas, goals, strategies, and plan for implementation, all with the goal that this council set forth in 2019, which is to be a net zero by 2030. That's the finish line. The way I look at this is this plan is going to be one of the tools and at least, you know, partial playbook on how we can get there, what different avenues we can take. This is 2 of 3 workshops. We've actually completed the 3rd workshop of our steering committee. And we are now working on the final report. And to me, it's been a really valuable process. We've had a lot of good input. We've had most of the department heads have been participating, including all 3 of the guys on the back bench right now, or 3 of the 4 of the guys on the back bench. So that's been a positive, and we've got some really good information out of that project. Community and advocacy groups. All of you who were around when the HB 41 or 411 was the hot topic of the day, were approached at some point by some to many to all of the community advocacy groups. I wanted to report back to you that they have not given up on us. They have not broken up with us. They were disappointed, and that's fine. But after some time, I was going to make a joke here about giving. As a single guy, I've gotten pretty good at having broken up and then give it some time and then come back and ease it up in friendships, you know. So I'm good at this, and we've kind of been handling it that way. I've maintained communication with many of these groups. They're still reaching out to me. They still want to be involved. They still care about West Valley City's goals and understand that while we may have chosen to take a different path, that the goals are still the same goals. So we're still working with those key groups that were lobbying you. The difference is now they're calling me instead of you. RDA incentives. Now I'm merging my 2 hats. Based on council's goals and incentives, the RDA has included sustainability and healthy communities as factors that will be considered as part of our return on investment metrics for every project seeking a tax increment incentive. It also helps that when I put on my other hat that I either create or am part of the approval process of every one of those incentive projects. So we'll be able to merge those together, but we thought, you know, what better way to get these new businesses to get on board than with dollars. So it won't be the overwhelming factor, but it will be part of the many factors that we consider as part of that return on investment. Additional programs and goals. This isn't on here, but I wanted to mention, since they were here right before me at the podium, the University of Utah's Health Center. I have been working with their Office of Sustainability on their new building, making sure that, as much as anything, making sure that I'm aware of the efforts that they're making on that building, how sustainable it is, and they want to be involved in the process. You know, they're hoping to make this, their goals right now are to make this 100% electric building and do as much generation on site as possible. But University of Utah is also financially participating in electric farms and offsets. So just as an off example, since they were right here. Water grant program. This is, we will be working with, we have submitted a grant application to Jordan Valley Water Conservancy District. It's currently in their review process. We expect to hear back sometime, I think mid-February was their goal. That project, if approved, will help fund. The project we submitted was to convert the remaining sod here at City Hall to either xeriscape or artificial grass. So if that gets approved, we'll be coming back to you with some requests on spending that money. Working with the available, we're going to try to utilize the available federal and state monies on EV charging stations, both in city facilities, as well as working with our private partners to help encourage them to put in more charging stations and using and putting in the right charging stations, making sure we're not putting in yesterday's technology. Residential retrofit, again, utilizing some of these available federal and state dollars and grant money, working to make that residential retrofit, such as insulation upgrades, solar panels, CNG fireplaces, and more available and more affordable to our residents, and help them make them more aware of that these things are available. And I think that to a lot of our residents, I think to a lot of all residents, that's half the problem. It's just not knowing that these programs are available to help offset those costs of just taking a gas fireplace and converting it to a compressed natural gas fireplace, that there are programs available that can help with those. Additionally, also not on here, but wanted to make you aware, recycling efforts. On January 27th, we will be participating in hosting a CHARM event. CHARM is an acronym for Collection of Hard to Recycle Materials. This is going to be at a Grizzlies game. This will be put on by the Utah Recycling Alliance. They're working directly with the Grizzlies. They brought me on as, to make sure that we were all on the same page. Chronic, hard to recycled materials. We all just, what are they? We all just went through Christmas, and we know the cardboard boxes, we know what we can do with those. We can break those down, put them in our recycling bins, they get taken off. What do you do with the hard styrofoam corners that come on the new TV that you got or the new stereo you got? Those can't be thrown in our recycling bin. So we end up throwing them in the trash. What about all the big plastic bags that those come in? Those are also not recyclable through our curbside pickup. These are those hard to recycle materials. What the Recycling Alliance is doing is they're going to have members of both of the hockey teams, Grizzlies team, and I think it's Idaho they're playing that night, but don't quote me on that. They're going to be out there pregame in their sweaters, helping to collect the material for those. So it'll be a drop off for any of those materials, as well as during the game, having some tables and some information on how to recycle these materials and where to recycle those materials. So that was new to me, that those things are available. So that's coming up on the 27th.
Rapid City.
Rapid City. Thank you. This was we had originally scheduled this to take place on the 31st on New Year's Eve game. And I think that was the Idaho game. And for a variety of reasons, not the least of which being that it was New Year's Eve. We were trying to get in on and capture that Christmas packaging. And it just couldn't, it was too much to try to do.
Stars game, not even Grizzlies game.
Okay, well, maybe that's why it got moved. Teach me to make guesses with man with the calendar in front of me. That's my report.
Grizzlies would be much better. I
Yes.
looked at the Stars last week.
Uh-oh.
Grizzlies would be much better.
Good. And they're probably a little buffer able to lift up some of those materials. I'm happy to answer any questions.
Okay, any questions?
And your EV charging stations, about how many would we need in the city?
That's a moving target. That's
I heard a report this last week that New York City wants to be all electric vehicles by 2030. And they only need 46,000 charging.
only 46,000 charging stations to the city that has more public transportation as well. Yeah, I don't have a figure on how many charging stations we would need because like I said, that's a moving target based on the number of EV vehicles that are produced and purchased, by either our residents or those that are coming here to work every day. What I can tell you is we don't have enough. So we're going to work on getting more.
Okay.
So for the new state and Salt Lake County has now put in money for the water grants.
Yes.
To flip your strip and do your local scape. Are we putting that on our website at all?
Yes.
Okay. And telling them how to go about doing that now that we meet all the ordinances?
Yep.
Okay. And then you what?
We'll meet tonight.
Yeah, well, after this one. What are the RDA incentives for? Is it a lot of money or is it just part of the packet? You have to click this off to even.
Yeah, we're not proposing a new incentive. But every time we switch hats again, that every time the RDA looks at doing a tax increment incentive, which we bring to you for your approval. Prior to that, all the work behind the scenes before you guys ever see it is we've got our own return on investment matrices. And it's everything from what are the tax benefits going to be to the city versus how much is going to the developer? How many jobs is that development going to create? What is the average salary of those jobs? What are the indirect financial benefits that could come from that to surrounding businesses? How many other businesses could likely co-locate because of this business? And all of those types of things. This is going to get added to that as part of those, when we review those, we'll say, okay, they hit this, we'll give them some scores. Based on that, we'll say, okay, they're asking for X, we're going to give them X minus 20. We're going to offer them X minus 25%, whatever on what that incentive, cash incentive is that they're looking for. We're just going to add this as one of those things to consider as far as giving away that letting them participate in that tax increment incentives.
Okay. And then, so the electric farms, we have that in Utah? the tax incentive. So if you buy energy in a solar
Yes,
elsewhere,
Yes.
it counts for your 0% here.
does.
Okay. I've had it in other locations, just worked with it, known about it, but not.
Yep, I believe Salt Lake City and Park City joined in to buy into or build a farm. And as we get closer to 2030, those are going to be some of those decisions that the council is going to have to take a look at and see, you know, if those are the things we're going to need in order to push us to the finish line on getting to that net zero. And what those, and, you know, we'll address those at the time. But yes, those are available options to us. Right now, I'm looking more towards what can we do with our buildings and our businesses here in the city where the electricity is generated and where it's used, rather than we're gonna burn the dirty stuff here and we're gonna create the clean stuff in Weber, you know, or the Canyon, or, you know, someplace where it's not so much of a factor.
We still have our dirty air here.
Yeah, I'd like to try to clean that up first before we try to ship it off site and do offsets. But that is an option for us. Yes.
Okay.
I think they have a big farm in the Milford City. The government contract.
Yeah.
On the stats and data, do you know how that data was collected? Is that self-reported, or? So I was surprised on the percentage of businesses participating in renewable across all the cities.
This is Rocky Mountains data. And the reason those 4 cities, ourselves and the 3 peer cities, were selected was because we're all cities that have participated in their Watt Smart program. So this is the number of businesses, their customers, and how many are participating in either their net metering for residential or for businesses participating in one of their sustainability programs. So that's their data.
Okay, any other questions? Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Working at it.
Working hard.
All right, we'll now have the discussion about the Utah League of Cities and Towns. There has been interest from some of the council members to rejoin. And so this is an opportunity. Cam is here from Utah League of Towns and Cities and Towns. I never get it right, so I have to look at it every single time. So who wants to start a discussion, or did you have anything you wanted to add?
No, ma'am, you saw the memo, and you'll recall when we recommended as staff, you know, reconsidering that when we made the move away from it. I was the staff member that made that recommendation. And so if you have questions about why we did it back then, I can answer those. Otherwise, as Wayne mentioned, we as staff are supportive of moving forward. If that's the council's desire to move back to the league, then we'll support that. And I don't have anything else unless I can answer questions for you.
Okay, let's ask what the questions are.
I'd like, well, I've participated in a few trainings at the league over housing over the last 10 years. And so I really see value in that. But I imagine there's also value in the other trainings they have. And so I think it's something we ought to at least consider and discuss. So I think that's one of my big points.
We're not prevented from participating in their trainings we just pay a higher fee as a non-member. Is that true?
Yeah, that was in Wayne's memo. His reply.
Couple of questions I want to ask you.
Oh, you want Cam to come to the?
Yeah, Is there anyone?
I'll let you introduce yourself up there, Cam.
Perfect. Thank you, Mayor Cameron Deal, the Executive Director of the Utah League of Cities and Towns, and pleasure to be with you tonight.
Thank you.
Thank you. To give other snapshot, just short, what are you guys doing right now? Because we haven't gone with you, with you guys for a while, so just one have a snapshot.
Yep, absolutely. And thank you for the question. I'm actually going to answer that question looking ahead to next week, because starting next week, we kiss our families goodbye, and we will be advocating for cities at the Capitol 24/7. The legislative session is a year-round effort. So even though we'll be at the Capitol 24/7 starting next week, and we'll be working on over 200 bills, plus a variety of appropriations that impact cities, we've really been doing significant amount of work year-round. And I often quip that we work on every policy issue that is not public education and healthcare. So everything else is in our portfolio. And so just today alone, I've been in meetings with legislators where we've been talking about transportation funding for cities. We've been talking about homelessness policy. We've been talking about economic development, property tax potential changes, sales tax, gas tax, all of the pieces, public safety, retirement. That's just today. And over the course of the next 7.5 weeks, we're going to be involved in all of these different dialogues on 200 plus bills. Now, when I say we, the value and the strength of the league is the membership. So when I say we, it's not just my staff and me. It's Mayor Silvestrini, who's the president of the League of Cities and Towns. I was on a call with him today for about an hour. I'll be meeting with him 7:30 tomorrow morning. And then Mayor Ramsey, who's the league's representative on the Unified Economic Opportunity Commission. She and I will be at the Capitol all morning with legislative leadership, working through about 50 different policy proposals that will impact cities in some form or fashion. And so the strength of the league is having mayors and council members from cities of all shapes and sizes, from all different backgrounds, being able to say, here's what this proposal would mean in our community. Have you thought about this? Have you thought about that? And then we funnel all of that information back to legislators. In years past, Councilmember Christensen has been a strong voice on the league board of directors. We're governed by mayors and council members. And then in addition to that board, we have a weekly policy committee. The mayors attended it last year. And that weekly policy committee is open to all voting members of the league to again give us that direction on the 200 plus bills. And then everything is tracked transparently on our website so that you know what's going on. So if West Valley City says, for example, and we've had these conversations repeatedly over the last few months, we're very interested in potential changes to House Bill 440 and homelessness policy. Perfect. We want West Valley at the table along with the other mayors in the county and really through the state, meeting with Wayne Niederhauser. I met with Representative Ellison this morning and to get an update on homelessness. We want your perspective so that we can work together to get to a good outcome that's not just good for cities in general, but for our collective constituents.
Thank you.
Mhm.
When you collect the city's perspective on issues, does every city have the same voice, or is it based on size of the city or the influence of the city, I guess?
No, Madam Mayor, the answer to that question is really all of the above. Within our policy committee that meets weekly, every city is entitled to up to 3 voting representatives, regardless of size, and then board members are on top of that. Again, our board consists of mayors and council members too, so I meet regularly with the board, then you have the policy committee. In addition to that, during the session, we actually hold daily strategy meetings with, for lack of a better term, the government relations professionals that cities often employ. And then we do weekly strategy sessions with key stakeholder cities. So historically, West Valley cities participated in all of those. And that's important because we'll have an hour-and-a-half policy meeting and everybody's there and everybody casts a vote. But then we have those strategy meetings on a regular basis. And often that's where we hear the perspective of the cities that are dedicating the staff and the elected officials who have the bandwidth to be involved at a very minute level. So I mentioned Mayor Silvestrini, he's the mayor of Mill Creek. He's currently the president of the league. He'll be at the Capitol this session, basically every day on behalf of West Valley City and assuming you rejoin the league, and on behalf of cities and towns across the state, just like Mayor Ramsey before him, just like Mayor Caldwell from Ogden before him, Mayor Mendenhall from Spanish Fork before him. So
we have our formal input gathering mechanisms, and then we have those daily meetings, and then you have the informal conversations where, I mean, Nicole, how many times have you and I chatted during the legislative session over the last 15 years since I've been at the league?
Lots of late night calls, Cam and I.
Yeah, lots of late night calls. So my point to you, and that's really for all the elected officials, is that when you call the league, we will answer, because the strength of the league is the membership, and it's important for West Valley City to have an elevated voice in that conversation.
What are the top 3 focuses you have right now as the league in the legislative calendar coming up?
Growth, growth, and growth. Now, to further refine that, we actually approach every bill through a prism that we developed when I became director 5 years ago. And that policy prism says, does this bill respect the role of local governments? Does it create a one-size-fits-all approach, or does it respect that local cities and towns are unique? And does it result in a financial impact on cities? So that's the prism that then we apply to each of the topics. So to answer your question then about the 3 general topics, I'd say first is always land use, because at the end of the day, how you plan your community looks different in West Valley than it does in West Jordan, than it does in West Bountiful. So it's important that you have the tools that you need in order to plan your community in a way that best meets the needs of your constituents. And candidly, there's a ton of pressure on land use this year, always has been, but particularly this year. And so we will have lots of tugs of war during the session over the appropriate role of the state versus the county versus metropolitan planning organizations versus the city. Also trying to balance all of those pieces with the property rights of the individuals involved. So it's constantly a balancing act when it comes to land use. So I'd say land use is number 1. And as a subsection of that, West Valley City has one of the best moderate income housing plans that I've read, and I've read a bunch of them around the state. And cities are under that affirmative obligation to plan for moderate income housing, and West Valley does it really well. There will be discussions over the next 7+ weeks over both the cities that are planning well, but also the cities that maybe aren't doing their part in planning for that growth. And what incentives or sticks does the legislature need to utilize in order to improve that planning? The second category is always public safety, because again, what's a community without public safety? So a couple of years ago, we were involved in legislation, actually 20 different bills that some use the term police reform. I don't like using that term. The way we framed it was ensuring community trust in police while also recognizing that there are things that we can do to improve and support our officers. Ultimately, we got to consensus on 20 bills where the League, Police Chiefs Association, Sheriff's Association, ACLU, and other stakeholders could all say, yes, we support these bills. That doesn't happen by accident. That took a lot of work, that interim, to get to that place, and that doesn't happen in other states. So I'd say land use is always number 1, with housing as a piece of that. The second is public safety. And then the third, I'll come back to that growth piece, but I'm going to throw transportation, water availability, economic development all into that bucket, because all those pieces fit together. You can't have a conversation about economic development without having a conversation about how we pay for transportation. And there are a lot of moving pieces on the transportation front, from gas tax to sales tax to free fare transit to other types of multimodal efforts. The governor has put forward a proposal to have a historic investment in trails, unlike anything we've ever seen in the state. The League Board has endorsed that. We want to make sure that appropriation recommendation makes it to the finish line, because that's going to benefit every community in the state.
Thank you.
Mayor, just okay if I could chime in?
Sure.
After that Cameron's so good at all of those pieces. And I wanted to just give Cameron some kudos as we talked about what the issues were. And as you heard Cam talk, some of those issues are glaringly important to us, and others, we're in a very different scenario than some cities, right? So when you talk about growth and how things are going to grow, we have some stuff to grow still, but we're pretty grown. That doesn't mean that moderate income housing or those things don't matter to us, but they matter much differently than a high growth city. So kudos to Cameron and Cameron has stayed right with us through these years that we've been in different ways here. And as we've talked about how the league could help us in particular, and how the league could be responsive to our big city needs that often were very different than some of the other cities. How can a league handle us and everyone else and successfully do that? And Cameron has been very responsive to that. And in fact, even to the level of hiring folks that were very helpful to our need and conversations, specifically folks that understand what it is to be a built out city, and in an effort to be responsive to what we needed from the league. And I have just really appreciated that from Cam. Cam has been intent on trying to serve West Valley and trying to facilitate a way that the league could be inclusive of our needs while also dealing with all these others. And that's a tall order. I will also say on Cameron's behalf, handling the likes of West Valley with regards to some of these conversations, and where we will raise our hands and say, hey, that's not ever going to work for us. And having 100 cities that it totally works for. And then having to figure out how to thread that needle is a really hard job. And kudos to Cameron and his team and to his efforts for really trying to facilitate that on our behalf and on behalf of all the rest of the cities. It's a tough thing to do, very difficult, and it takes a lot of savvy, and Cameron and his team are very good at it. And I will say these issues that he's mentioned will continue to be issues for us long into the future, as you're well aware as a council. And we are a unique city, and Cameron recognizes that, and he and I have had lots of conversation about that. And I just am grateful to Cameron and his efforts in trying to facilitate a path forward for us. He really has done that in spades.
It seems like the benefits could outweigh the potential conflicts. I would support. I don't know how the council feels.
Yeah, Mayor, so we your desire want to be a membership with the league, right?
Yeah, I think it'd be good for us, but I'm willing to take in all the information and yeah, that's why we're talking about it. If anybody else has a opinion. I was going to ask if there was an issue, just so that we understand the issues of what doesn't play well with everybody else. It's just exclusively us, and kind of understand that.
Sure. And ma'am, if it's okay, I'll have Lincoln come in and talk about that just a little bit.
Okay.
He and I, of course, I could talk about it too, but I'm sure you guys sometimes get sick of hearing my voice. And Lincoln is, of course, our front line on that. And there are some, right? And it's just because of our circumstances, not because we're unusual as a city. It's just because we're large, we're built out, we have different requirements from lots of different ways. So Lincoln, if you want to just answer that question for the council, both on a sort of today and also broad perspective.
Absolutely. Thanks, Nicole, and thanks, Mayor. Lincoln Shirts with West Valley City, obviously. I have to give a little bit of a background. So I ran government affairs for the League of Cities and Towns for 14 years before I moved on and then worked at the Association of Counties and ultimately landed at West Valley City. So there's an affinity that I have towards the league and the role that they play in representing cities. And I think they do a phenomenal job. As I was listening to Cameron talk, I think the best way to look at it, and the way I've always viewed it, is the league is a great aggregator of information on behalf of municipal government. There are 250 cities in the state of Utah. And to think that the league can represent each one of them individually is, I think, a bit of a misnomer. But what they do is get everyone together and get kind of the common basic policy right 99.9% of the time on behalf of municipal government. Where our legislative advocacy team comes in is on specific requests for West Valley City. And there have been circumstances in the past in which the general policy that would probably be beneficial for all cities, there are some unique nuances that affect West Valley City a little bit differently. I think some of the places in which that's played out kind of most glaringly is in the homelessness discussion, where Salt Lake County in particular has played an enhanced role in addressing homelessness for the state of Utah, not just Salt Lake County residents and the issue that's affecting the entire state. And in those negotiations, Cameron has 250 members that he's got to balance the interest of all of those members. What our legislative advocacy team does is work with Cameron to get it as close as possible as we can. And then when there's specific issues that affect us, dealing with the siting of a specific facility or dealing with the way in which we pay other cities for hosting those facilities, we can then advocate kind of separate and apart from the league in addition to coordinating with the league on some of their efforts. So I really see it as a tandem approach. There are also things that Cameron and his team candidly don't have the ability to do because they have 250 clients, and that is advocate for specific appropriation requests. So as we continue to look at our growth patterns in the city and things that we want to accomplish in the area of appropriations, oftentimes the league's not the right vehicle to do that because they would have to pick winners and losers among their membership, wherein we can go make a specific request of legislators for a piece of infrastructure within our city or for an economic development tool that we may need that other cities may not need. And that came up this year with HTRZs, where we were working on opportunity zones and HTRZs, which are going to be unique to specific jurisdictions and maybe not something that's shared by all 250 cities that are under the auspices of the League of Cities and Towns. I will say from an advocacy standpoint, playing their aggregator role, oftentimes I attend the League of Cities and Towns meetings to get information on the 200 bills that Cameron's tracking, because for West Valley City, of those 200 bills, there's probably 50 that really apply to West Valley City. But it's important to understand how all those bills interrelate, because they do. You can't just pick one bill out of the mix and presume that you can be effective on that bill without understanding kind of the full package of what's taking place in kind of the scope of municipal government. And so the league provides a phenomenal role, resource, a great collaborating tool. I will echo what Nicole said in terms of Cameron and his staff going overboard for West Valley City in trying to get us back in to the league umbrella in terms of just taking our calls, trying to coordinate with us, even though we weren't members, trying to really facilitate a dialogue and understand our issues when candidly he didn't have to. So he's done a lot to really build the trust with West Valley City. And I think he continues to do a phenomenal job representing municipal government. I've often said to Nicole, I think there's immense value in the league and the role that they play. That doesn't mean that we don't do our own legislative advocacy, but it really has to be a hand in a glove approach associated with that.
Okay, thank you.
Did that answer?
Yep. Okay. Well, I was asking for one specific, like we had a whatever, to really understand what the implication was, but it sounds like right now we can work in partnership, and with both working for us, we'll have even better results, and we won't be freeloading out of Cam's kindness and get shut off in the future of not being a participant in other cities saying, why are we helping out West Valley? Why aren't they paying their way?
Well, and some of the things that you've specifically asked for in the ordinance and the document that you gave to us as kind of a guiding document for the city for this year was some appropriation requests. So there are appropriations with Olympic venues that we uniquely host here in West Valley City. There was a request for some additional infrastructure dollars in West Valley City that we'll be advocating for, that Cameron and his staff won't be able to advocate for. We have a very specific issue with transportation safety on the Mountain View corridor where we may want to implement some sort of photo cop type enforcement mechanisms within that jurisdictional boundary of Mountain View corridor. Those are things that are going to be very unique to West Valley City, where our team takes kind of a laboring oar, if you will, on those issues, while still coordinating with the league so that they understand what the implications may be outside of the city as well.
Yeah. But in the league meetings, they've been talking about how to address Mountain View. I know there's quite a few mayors that have issue with that.
Absolutely.
And going through our cities. So I can see it being a partnership that other cities will help push through, and then us being able to do things for ourselves.
Absolutely, Mayor.
So, okay, thank you. Anybody else have questions of Lincoln?
No, but Mayor, I'm supporting you. I didn't support in classes, more than go to the classes here. Way more for sure than, I'm saying college is appreciate your time and sharing that with us. Yeah, all of you.
Don, did you have something?
I just want to say, I was probably the most involved with the league on the council since the first year I was on the council. I think that's when I joined or was selected to the board and served on there ever since. We did have some concerns when one year the board goes strictly small towns and small cities. Each has a whole different outlook on life than big cities does. When we brought that up to Cameron, we actually rewrote the Constitution to make sure big cities had a place on the board every year. And so, they have been working with us. Yes. At one point, we did a lot of that work with our staff, which, Wayne said, we can't afford to pay our staff and pay their staff. And so that's one of the things that came up.
Right.
But again, I have been probably the most involved. They have helped us. And I'm one that, if there's a bigger organization that could help a smaller organization, I'm all for it. I served on the State Board of Education for 12 years. And of that, 10 of those years, I was on the National Association Board. So again, helping the big group, helping the small group, learning with our 29 school districts in Utah compared to some states that are much smaller than us and have 200 and some odd school districts. And so that, again, was a different outlook on life for education than many other states had. So we had to balance that too. So I can see that the overall larger effect, and I would be happy to go back with them. I'd be happy to stay separate if that's the way the council wants to do it.
And this does allow us with the National League as well, or, yeah.
Yeah, that's exactly right. In order to be members of the National League of Cities, you have to be members of the state league.
Right. Okay. So,
Mayor, can I say something?
yes, I was just looking up to say, do you have anything?
I do. And interestingly enough, my thought on this topic in reading the memo beforehand and obviously being in discussions around leaving the league. And then my thought has kind of changed actually just in the last 10 minutes of this discussion here. And it's not so much where I was looking at an opportunity lost or opportunity cost versus, having a specialized dedicated team for the city. I don't see it as an either or anymore. I think a city our size, with the resources and appropriations and policies that are obviously always going to be an issue for us. I actually am more, I don't want to say concerned, but I'm more interested in looking at the cost benefit and having both, because I think the pros and cons of membership are fairly clear. It's also clear that we can participate in conferences and trainings without being members, etc. If this is costing $92K-ish, I think was the figure that was thrown out around membership fee versus what Lincoln and our in-house team are doing. I'm interested in looking at those numbers to see if there isn't a way that we can leverage both and have a specialized in-house team that is 100% looking out for us and running those things that aren't relevant to small towns in the state, but also giving us leverage and, as Don mentioned, being good neighbors and helping out other municipalities as well. So that's what I'm interested in looking at.
Okay.
Mayor,
Thank you.
if you'd like, I could quickly address the budget
Uh-huh.
item. We do have, as you know, each year, based on the issue, sometimes it's appropriation based, sometimes it's otherwise. We have the ability to sometimes go out to a specialized, we've had need in the past to sometimes go to a specialized lobbyist. Like for instance, if we have a really technical transportation issue once in a while, we'll go to a Greg Curtis who knows where all the money is, right? We haven't had need to do that. And of course, with the addition of Lincoln, that really has become a almost non-existent need. So from the scenario that Councilmember Fatisi Manu mentioned with regards to having the availability for funding the league and continuing with the specialized, we as a staff have looked at that with regards to preparing for this discussion, and we have the funds to be able to do that kind of in that normal pot that we keep for if we need to, that we keep budgeted for if we need to expand or detract on outside help once in a while. We haven't had to do that for, I don't know how many years now, at least 3 or 4 years. And so I think we'd be just fine from a budgeting perspective to be able to do both, as Councilmember Fatisi Manu suggested.
Okay. So I guess I'll just kind of ask by nods if there's enough interest to have rejoining the league on an agenda item next week for study.
And ma'am, so because
Or
of the
whatever way
that
we have to do
right,
it.
exactly, because of the way it is, it's kind of like a subscription service, so to speak. It's just a PO. We don't need to have formal action. You
Oh,
can
okay.
just tell, you as a council can just direct staff tonight to
do it.
do it, and we'll do it.
Okay. But is that a formal vote we can't do or?
Yeah, you just kind of have to give me the.
Four
Okay.
nods.
I think we've got that direction.
That's what I've seen so far, but just to make sure. Okay,
I'm good.
Don said he was fine either way. Jake kind of said either way.
Either way.
Okay. Then let's make it so.
And just so you know, part of the discussion always is at the end of the year, we do a return on investment update or report to the council after each legislative session and also with regards to each contract. So we'll be doing that for you, just as Councilmember Fatisi Manu asked for as well. We do that every year, kind of as a, just because it's important to do. So
It's not like the cable, but canceling.
that's right. We have a deal for you.
Yeah.
Anytime.
Maybe like a report shortly after the session, so that
Yes,
we
sir.
kind of know.
Yep.
Instead of 6 months later, we know what we got out of it.
No, we usually do that about a week or two after the session's out, so we can get everything kind of sorted out for you. But yep, absolutely. Yes, sir.
As soon as their feet hit the ground again.
Yeah.
Did you have another
Once we
comment?
take it now.
Just a couple of quick things. First of all, thank you for your participation. As I mentioned before, the strength of the league is the membership. And so having your voice as West Valley City in these conversations on some really critical issues this year is paramount, and I think will be a benefit to your constituents. The second thing on the return on investment piece, we also do a report at each spring when the membership dues go out to demonstrate the value that we've provided, because this conversation I'm having with you tonight is not unique. I have this conversation with cities all over the state to make sure that the hard-earned taxpayer dollars that you're investing in us really do bring a positive return to you. And I'll just give one example of some ongoing return that you may not be aware of. But if you go back to the 2015 legislative session, the league was instrumental in passing House Bill 362, which increased the motor fuel tax and authorized the fourth quarter in transportation. Well, we do an annual report on how much money that has generated in the aggregate for cities and towns across the state. We could break it down for West Valley City that over these last 8 years, those increases in gas tax and transportation revenues has been this much for West Valley, but in the aggregate, it's hundreds of millions of dollars for cities and towns that is only flowing to cities and towns because of our collective advocacy. But happy to provide that information and the return. The last thing is I just invite you to engage. Starting next week, the legislative session starts Tuesday. I invite you to local officials day at the legislature on Wednesday. Bring your youth council. I'm a former youth council person myself. It's my favorite event that we do all year. We have youth councils, legislators, and city officials for lunch, and we have our policy committee during the 11 o'clock hour prior to the lunch, and the policy committee meets weekly. Nicole, I'll follow up with you or Lincoln tomorrow to identify your 3 voting representatives so that you're ready to rock as we start taking votes next week. So thank you for the trust. Thank you for the partnership, and Mayor, thank you for the time.
Okay, thank you. Appreciate you coming out. All right, we'll turn the time over to Mr. Schertz again for our legislative update.
Thanks, Mayor. It feels like we just kind of did a little bit of the legislative update with Cameron telling you some of the major policy issues that the legislatures can be dealing with. Just a couple of kind of housekeeping items as it relates to the calendar. As Cameron mentioned, the session does start next Tuesday. The opening legislative policy committee meeting of the League of Cities and Towns will be on Wednesday for next week, and then every subsequent week will be on Monday. So once we do select as a council who we want our voting representatives to be, I will be working with you to obviously attend those meetings and get kind of the broader picture of what's going on for municipal government here in the state on behalf of West Valley City. In addition to that, we are actively working on a couple of our funding requests that were included in the document that you gave to us as kind of the guideposts for what we wanted to accomplish this session, and are also actively working on the transportation safety measures as it relates to Mountain View Corridor. So things are well underway on our efforts to address many of those issues that you brought forward as wishes for the city council. In terms of the overall structure of the legislative process, I will tell you for the next 2 weeks of the legislative session, most of that's going to be appropriations, which is where they do much of their budgeting work, at least at the subcommittee level. Most of the policy work will start happening on about week 2, 2.5, and then the remainder of the session. So that's when we're really going to hit the ground running as it relates to the policy work, because we do have a couple of funding requests that we'll be pursuing this year. We'll be very busy in the first 2 weeks on those funding requests with sub appropriations committees. And then as we carry out through the session, most of the work will kind of transition into some of the policy work. I believe up on the screen is at least the preliminary bill tracking sheet that you will be getting on a weekly basis when we do our legislative update. We are still kind of working on finalizing this. So right now, session hasn't started. There are about 200 pieces of legislation that have been drafted. We as staff go through that legislation and provide a staff recommended position. I would really encourage you to take a look at this sheet on a weekly basis so that you can direct us if we get misdirected on missing a policy position, but we are for the first time going to be giving a staff recommendation based on our assessment of the legislation. And so please take a look at that. We'll be using this as kind of the study guide, if you will, in the upcoming session so that you can give us additional direction on these bills. Most of the bills you'll see on this study sheet, which we'll be emailing out to everyone and putting in a share drive later this week, are really bills that have already been pre-vetted. There's not a lot of controversial stuff in there. Much of the stuff that Cameron and I have been mentioning as it relates to land use authority, transportation funding, moderate income housing, economic development incentives, the things that we truly, truly care about are still in the drafting phase. So as soon as those get drafted, we'll be adding those to the tracking sheet and then obviously coming back to the council to seek additional guidance on how we want to pursue those issues. And with that, Mayor, I'm happy to answer any questions from you or the council.
Okay, any questions for Lincoln?
Thanks again for the time and thanks again for the additional resources. I think there will be huge advantages in the partnership with the league. So thanks, Mayor.
Okay, thank you.
There are 2 more things on that. Angel sent out an email last week about the local government officials day and she only heard from Will. So take a look in your email if you want to go to that. She'll get you all set up on that. We do have our youth council set up to go as well. This tracking sheet will come to you as a link in an email, but the link will be live. So every day it will change because of what Lincoln said. So feel free to hit that link anytime you're bored or want to see what the next
So we don't
is.
need to wait for a new email.
No, ma'am.
We just click that
Yep.
link and it's updated.
Yes,
Okay.
yep, and it'll
Making sure.
change truly day to day as we go through these first week. Well, it'll change day to day, every day, truthfully.
Okay.
Towards the end, it'll change hour to hour.
Yeah, it gets really crazy. Yeah.
My daughter's also attending the council.
Oh, good.
Oh, nice.
Awesome. Perfect. Great. We have a great youth council advisor. Clover does that for us out of Sam's office and she's really great.
Is she still able to do that? Yes.
She does it.
Okay.
Volunteers.
I was like,
Well,
Doesn't.
she couldn't do planning commission anymore because of her new job. So I didn't know if she had to give that up too.
yeah, no,
So that's
she's-
cool.
She's really great.
Good. Okay, so the council calendar, did anybody have any questions on that? No? Does anybody have an issue with your council appointments. The one specific for me is the basketball and the hockey games, the events that I don't have tickets to. I don't need a reminder before it, and sometimes it goes off in the middle of meetings and such. So I was gonna ask her to send it to 0, no alarm ahead. Is that all right with everyone? Or will that throw you off? Yes? Okay. Are you tired of those as well?
Yes.
Okay.
There's a lot of events.
Sometimes I feel like I don't want to bring it up because I think it's selfish, but if others of you are feeling it, bring it up. Because, yeah, it dings times I don't want it to. Okay, so Angel will do that for us. And there was no other things there. Potential future agenda items. I forgot to send this to you two earlier. I sent it out to the council. I was going to do this in between, but I forgot. So you just got it. I've met with the council in groups of 2 people and myself. And we talked about the strategic plan for this year. We really don't feel like it is functional. So we want to try a different approach this year. So this is everybody's concerns. And we were thinking about just having address 1 a month and kind of categorizing them. However, there's a lot that are the street lights and the sidewalks. Recycling is kind of on its own, but it could maybe go in that same time. This puzzle project of Dawn's, different things like that. So to discuss that, I don't know if we want to take time tonight to prioritize it or if we need more time to do that. Next week, we don't have a regular meeting, so we could take that time to go through and prioritize this.
Sure.
The one thing that we would probably like to get the soonest is Jim's presentation on the finance that we normally have at the beginning of study.
You bet.
Strategic plan, thank you. And then the rejoin.
Relaxed, saw me in the hall today.
You what?
Jim looked awful relaxed. when he
Oh.
Saw me in the hall today. Oh, I don't have to do that this week.
Yeah. So if there's a time that we can schedule that, and then we've already done the rejoin league, so that's no big deal.
I think the puzzle project will not be a big deal either. It's
No.
basically scheduling the Dowdle people to come and make a presentation to us.
And see if there's anybody that wants to move forward with it. Okay. So I think that's gonna be quite simple. And that's what I don't know if you want to try and categorize them tonight or take a week and then next week after study in the same time period, we'll just, and if we have to go over, we'll go over. Because we don't have regular.
If we have a week, we can kind of put them together ourselves too.
Okay.
See what groups they're falling to.
Okay, so do you want to do that as council and let us know, or do you want us to look at these and kind of combine them and bring it back to you from staff?
And
I'm
then,
happy either way.
Let's have them combined.
Okay.
That'd be great. And then next week in study or after study, we can,
We can prioritize them for us. Okay,
Yeah.
that'll be
does that
great.
sound good?
Yeah.
I think it's a great list, though. I'm
Yeah.
excited about all of it.
And that would be once a month in a council meeting.
right.
Yep.
So
okay.
I think it was Lars, I can't remember who suggested it. Taking maybe the first Tuesday of every month and have it a lighter schedule.
Yep.
So we can present it, it can be presented to us because the list will be made.
You bet.
And then it's just a monthly.
Yeah.
Report.
That sounds great.
And then if they don't get it to the level we want, then we'll just ask for it again and again until everybody gets the information they want.
Great. Can do.
Okay.
So we'll
Was
work
there-
on we'll work on
Combining it?
consolidating and then we'll
Okay.
bring it back for prioritization next week.
Okay.
Okay.
And then you have the name, so if there's something
We don't understand.
you don't understand, yeah. And it could be from somebody's mouth to my ears to this, even some more complication, but you guys look at it. If you think more information needs to be added, text them or email them and then we can just have them put that together for us. I think that would be great. Then we'll just do them one at a time.
Can do.
Okay, well, that took less time than I thought. Good to say around, Cameron. Okay, council reports.
Oh, I'm sorry, ma'am. I
Oh.
have 2 suggested future potential agenda items.
Sorry,
so
and I didn't
apologize.
even ask anybody else, so sorry.
you want to go for the council first and I'll?
Yeah, is there anybody else that had any future potential?
I don't know if it's an agenda item or a question, but on the non-emergency dispatch number, I got one comment and wasn't sure if it was the user. And then I got a second comment that I don't know if changes have been made because I've called it before and have had no issues, but they're saying that they're getting into a loop where they make a selection and then it's not getting anywhere and.
Okay,
Doesn't
And
progress to
one
anybody?
selection says hang up and call non-emergency dispatch number. So it's just, I don't know if there's changes to it.
I don't either, but let me find out. That's an important thing I'll take care of
I
tonight.
know both the emergency and non-emergency go to VEC.
Right.
I'll find out. I don't know that there have been changes, but certainly we don't want anyone in a loop, even non-emergency. So I'll find out for you. And I'll respond by email to the council with the answer.
Related to that, parking compliances, I read that the number is not for enforcement, it's for other questions on the website. Is that just?
I don't
need
know
a
that
number.
answer either.
I need a number for
Okay.
somebody in my neighborhood that is not tech savvy, can't get on the map and
Okay.
do it. They just want to call.
Okay. Yeah, I don't know that answer either, but let me find out for you as well. That's a quick turnaround.
Thank you.
Sorry, I don't
No
know.
worries.
Very good.
Okay, there was,
I wasn't going to mention it, but I sent in an email to Wayne and Chief Jacobs about a tow truck parks across the street from me or just up around the corner from me and likes to park very close to the corner. And during these snowstorms, when I turn on Continental and that tow truck's right in front of me with a car on it, I know it's over the weight limit because it's a rollback and that's bigger than anything else. He did get ticketed the day I sent it in, but it didn't change his MO.
We've contacted parking compliance just to follow up on that because you had mentioned it last week and they said that they were gonna send an officer hopefully to speak
He's been
directly
there
to the
he's been
person.
there every day this week
Okay.
across the street. from
Yeah,
me.
we just heard back yesterday, I think, and he said that they were gonna try and get an officer to talk to him about and let him know that he can't do that. And if he's still not compliant, they'll continue to ticket him, so.
He may
hopefully-
also be on our rotation. We'll find out about that as well. And if he's on our rotation, we have a little bit more
Couldn't park
help
in
we
two
can give.
spots.
Okay,
You know,
okay. I'll follow up on that one also.
and it's when I'm trying to get up to speed, leaving my driveway and make that turn into Continental to go up to the church and he's right there.
Okay.
Especially with the ice on the road,
Almost a little bit scary.
oops.
okay, you want
Okay.
to?
I wanted to see if the council would be amenable to a proclamation for Senator Maine. We've done this for other retiring legislators. I think Mayor Bigelow was the last one when he retired from the legislature. We just did a proclamation that just details some of the things that they've done for the city in the past and gives our thanks as a city and as a city council. If the council was interested in that, I would propose that we bring that next week for your review and kind of get it on as quickly as we can.
How many pages?
Yes, I don't know. There are a lot of pages and I'm not sure I can write it without crying myself,
No.
but if that's amenable to the council, I'll prepare that. And then the other one,
I was just making sure. I think we had plenty, so we're good.
the other one that I was going to propose that not necessarily is a proclamation, but as you saw in the Monday update, we were successful with an earmark at the legislature, at the federal level
Okay.
for 4700 South for $5 million. And Stewart and Owens were integral in that. Both of them put in one for 3 and one for 2 to get that to our 5 for 4700. And I thought it was probably apropos to invite them to one of the council meetings. I thought maybe we'd invite them to a 6:30. They could come, similar to what we did with my hometown, say thank you. They could introduce themselves and say happy Love Fest sort of thing. If that's amenable to the council, that's not a necessarily agenda item, but I thought maybe we should do that in the next week or two as well, because that's fresh, hot off the presses. So
Okay.
is that okay? And I'll make the invite to them. Do you have a
Okay.
preference on day? Obviously not fifth
Not next
Tuesday
week.
and not next week. So maybe we'll go February, the first Tuesday in February. Okay, again, first Tuesday in February for Stewart and Owens.
Okay.
On the 4700 stuff. Okay.
Mayor, I had one item too.
Okay.
So I was contacted by the Hunter High FBLA Club, which is the Future Business Leaders of America. And they are working on a national FBLA program, and part of that, qualifying for that, they have to reach out to their local council to see if they'll approve a proclamation. So they have a proposed proclamation. Just wanted to see if you guys were comfortable with that.
What is the subject of the proclamation?
It's just supporting the Future Business Leaders of America, the FBLA. So just
Okay.
detailing that it's a nonprofit, detailing what the program does, and just Hunter High School's participation in it.
Okay. Anybody have an objection?
Yes, yes.
I
Should we
would-
run that, do we
So-
have to run that through legal or something?
Yes, so we'll make sure that it's in the legal format.
So would it be appropriate for one of them to read it?
I certainly could ask them. It was
The
their,
fact that they're asking for it and pushing it, I think that would be kind of cool for them.
nope, I've been in contact with their advisor, so I'll see if there's
Okay.
something they'd like to do.
Yeah. let's get
One
them
of their.
involved.
Read it.
Yes.
The advisor.
Yes.
Yeah, one of the kids. Okay,
That's also basically.
so I have another just information thing and I don't know where to put it on the agenda, so I'm just gonna put it here. I have realized after our last little meeting we've had with people, or I've had with the council, that I get a lot more information than you do. And so I'm going to start sharing the emails I get with you, just so that you have the same information. You won't need to do any action. Staff usually does all the action on them, but just so you have the information. And then when staff gives the response, we'll just have them send it to everybody as well. So you know how it was handled. And then that way you're in the loop. If a resident comes up to you in, I was gonna say in Harmon's, Smith's, let's make it different, and says, you know, are you guys even moving forward with this? And you say, I don't even know about it. Well, I let Mayor Lang know. Well, she didn't let us know. So I think it would be best if I share those with you. So I'll just do that automatically.
Like that street sign that I didn't know we were putting up new ones in.
Things like that. Well, that one wasn't, none of us knew.
Yeah.
That needed to tell you that ahead of time. But yeah, so if that's all right, I'll just start doing that. And you won't need to take any action. It's just information. Because I don't need 6 different responses either. Staff would probably appreciate us not giving 6 different answers.
Well, that way we'll know what the
Response.
response was.
Yeah.
So that we can give the same response or.
Yeah.
You know, or we could say, well, this is what staff says, but this is what I want to say. And then that'll get back to staff and they'll talk to us about it.
There you go. All right. So there's that information. And then the next thing is our council reports.
Well, I was at the Healthy West Valley City meeting today.
Okay.
We kind of did a review of what items we did last year and did a report of what's going on in each of the parts of our coalition. And a couple of things that came out, starting February 1st, the Granger Library will have blood pressure monitors available for checkout. And you can check them out for up to 21 days. And then if there's not a big rush on them, you check them out for another 21 days if you want to monitor your blood pressure.
That's
But
nice.
they've got about a dozen of them right now.
Okay.
But they're putting things together and how to check them out and everything else. That's why they're waiting until February 1st.
And then will the library advertise that or will the Healthy West Valley advertise that or both?
Yes, and yes.
Yes and yes. Okay.
And probably the county health department too.
Okay.
Also, Pastor Vanetta indicated the Project Cornucopia will be on June 10th this year. And I think we scheduled West Fest the same weekend as that last year. So we might want to take that into consideration as we do the scheduling this year. I think we're far enough ahead that we can adjust a little bit. But she was pretty adamant about June 10th. So,
And June has 4.5 weekends. So, okay.
those were the two major things that came out that we went through a lot of brainstorming about what we want to do this year and who we want to involve in the coalition. And one of the biggest ones was we need to get the local school district involved because we're trying to get this information in schools and teach the kids about healthy lifestyle and things like that. We don't have anybody on the district in the coalition, so we're working on that. That's it.
That's it. So just a note on that, the district has started a new lunch once a quarter with the mayors and the district leaders. And so
I saw that on
we
there.
can bring that up then as well. If you want me to, if you want to give me some more information of what you need help with, we can.
We'll usually put things together. I forgot when lunch was.
Well, we decided to do them quarterly. They had a month scheduled monthly and the 5 of us looked at each other and said, no, let's go quarterly. They gave us an option to choose, so we chose quarterly.
Right. I'll also talk to my contact on the district
Here you go.
Board of Education.
Yeah, and she won't be in that meeting anymore. She's not the chair. So I don't think she'll be there. We'll see.
Yeah, see what happens.
Yeah. I don't know how their leadership changes. Okay. Lars? No? Okay.
Just the ribbon cutting for Cafe.
So tell the group so they can go to lunch and
Yeah,
breakfast.
great little restaurant on the campus of Franklin Covey. They've got a mixture of Polynesian dishes with Latin twist, they said. So the samples they had, I thought were great.
They were really good.
You open just for lunch or dinner? too?
Open Monday through Friday, 6 a.m. For breakfast and then lunch till 1 o'clock. Right now, they'll may adjust that in the future, but 1 o'clock.
And it's on the backside of the Covey building.
You have to enter from the north. So the 3 of us went, Will and Don and I, and we were all driving all
We all
over.
discovered all of their parking.
Well, Will finally called and I just followed him where he went, but yeah, it's a little difficult to find, but the food was phenomenal.
Yeah.
Spencer Longy, the head chef, grew up here in West Valley. He's a West Valley kid and he makes some good food. So
He's
And-
Polynesian.
he's Polynesian and Nisha got a piece of the Hispanic influence because it was spicy.
I ate it for.
Yeah. She's like, I know you'll like this. Hand it over. So yeah, it was really nice. I think. Okay. Then we only have one more. Oh, do we have a need for a closed?
No, ma'am.
So one more motion.
Motion to adjourn, Mayor.
Hey, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, we stand adjourned and we'll see you at 6:30.